You've heard of hard and soft limits in kink, right? Easy. Well, they've got some nuances. Let's get into the nuances with a special focus on DS dynamics, aka Dom-Sub relationships. A lot of kinksters, when they negotiate, and that could be negotiating for a single scene or for what goes on in their dynamic with a partner or partners, oftentimes they'll use a kink checklist or what's sometimes called a yes, no, maybe list, which is a list of a bunch of different activities, and they can go through and say, oh yes, that's a hard limit, that's a soft limit, etc., etc. Hard limits are absolute non-negotiables that are completely off limits that you are not willing to explore. And the reason? Well, that's yours and yours alone. You don't have to explain or defend a hard limit to anybody. And respecting those hard limits of our partners and sometimes even ourselves is crucial in kink. Pushing or violating these limits is a breach of trust that can lead to physical and or psychological harm. While soft limits are those soft no's, they're a little bit flexible. You might be willing to explore them under right circumstances or the right conditions. And that can be for all sorts of reasons. Maybe it's something that's really intriguing and exciting, but also really kind of scary, and you're a little hesitant and reluctant, and you want to make sure you know what you're getting into. Maybe it's something you've tried before, but under a circumstance that was less than ideal, or with a partner that maybe wasn't the best partner to do it with, and you want to try it again. Whatever the reason, you might choose to explore a soft limit. That is yours and yours alone to decide and initiate. And it takes lots of negotiation to make sure that this is the right circumstance that you're building, that you have agreed to experiment with your soft limit in. Now, this is just the drive-by on soft limits. There's a lot of nuances we can dig into when it comes to figuring out if you want to choose to push one of your soft limits, dip your toes in the water, etc. Take my class at the DS Summit and we'll get into a bunch of those. But there's one particular thing about soft limits that I want to talk about. And it comes up in any type of relationship, but we tend to see it a little bit more in DS dynamics or Dom-Sub dynamics that exist outside of a scene or a playtime. Now, it goes without saying, these situations have lots and lots of discussions and negotiation and consent conversations behind them. And that's ongoing. It doesn't just happen once, but there are continual conversations that repeatedly come up over time. But sometimes DS couples have an agreed upon subsection of their soft limits that they are willing to do at the request of their partner. For instance, say I'm a dom and I have negotiated with my sub as a reward for when they've done something good and I want to give them something special. We've pre-negotiated 3 things that are my soft limits that I don't particularly like. I may not choose to initiate them for my own benefit, but I don't hate them so much that they're an absolute no. And I like them a little bit more when I know that when I'm doing them because it makes you happy. And I love you. Or on the flip side, maybe I'm a submissive and we've pre-negotiated a few things that I do as an act of service for my dominant or as a punishment if I did something. Whatever it is, it's still consensual, it's still agreed upon, and I can still say no. If that day I'm not feeling it, if I've changed my mind for any reason that I don't have to defend to anyone, because consent is always revocable at any time. But what about enthusiastic consent? Shouldn't we be jumping for joy about every single thing we do? And this is where the kink nuance comes in. And it's important to understand because if we get it wrong, we may be violating someone's consent. And we don't want to do that. Most of the time, absolutely yes. But sometimes, instead of enthusiastic consent, engaged consent is a better descriptor. I'm going to contextualize what I'm getting at with a vanilla example that we all can relate to. Your bestie calls and says, hey, I have a big favor to ask. I have to go on a work trip and I need a ride to the airport at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. Do you think you can give me a ride? Now, as humans, we can be complex, meaning we can feel two very opposing things at one time. So there's a little part of me that's like, son of a bitch. But then the other part of me is like, you know what? If you were anybody else, I'd tell you to go get, but for you, I got you. You need me, I will be there anytime. And when that morning rolls around, we might still have moments of like, ugh, God, it's so dark outside. I'm so tired. I just want to sleep in. But then we think, you know what? But they're my bestie. I got their back. They got my back. This is what we do for each other. I'm happy to do it. And yeah, we end up having a great ride to the airport and we shoot the shit. We get some coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. It's all good. Would I have chosen to do it? No, I wouldn't have chosen to wake up at 5 on a Saturday morning. But am I happy to do it for them? You betcha. Another example, my partner says, I'm starving, I want to hit a drive-through, let's go to Burger King. And the truth is, I'm not a fan of Burger King. I don't hate it, like I'm not gonna if I eat Burger King, but if it were my own choice of where to get drive-through, Burger King would be one of the last places I'd pick. It's okay, like it's mid, yeah, I'll eat it, but I know that my partner has dietary restrictions, and that's one of the few drive-through places that has some things that he can eat. So, of course, yeah, we can do Burger King because I know it's that or nothing for you. You know, in all actuality, I'd pick Taco Bell and get myself a Mexican pizza, but I know Taco Bell gives my partner the wicked runs. And, you know, Burger King might be my soft limit, but Taco Bell is his hard limit because he'll be in the toilet for an hour. Well, I guess it's kind of soft, but you know what I'm saying, right? With lots of negotiation and communication and knowing that you can revoke your consent at any time, and also knowing that when you agree to something, it comes from you and not a partner guilt tripping you or pressuring you. Then nuanced soft limits can sometimes look like this. But you may be thinking, but wait, this isn't Burger King, this is kink. And there are certain adult things, like it's triggering for me. I need to be enthusiastic about the adult things I do. I can't do mid things. You don't have to. Your limits and boundaries are always yours. Your wants are always yours, and they can be anything. And you don't have to explain or defend them to anybody. And kink, especially DS dynamics, involves a lot more than the grown-up stuff. Maybe as a dom, I agree to give you a flogging with my soft deer hide flogger because to you, it feels like a deep tissue massage. But even though I flog sometimes, it's not my favorite. You know, maybe my wrist, it's a little uncomfortable on my wrist, nothing horrible, but it wouldn't be the first thing I'd choose to do, but because you love it so much, I'm gonna do it for you. The nuances in our limit and consent conversations can go deep. The nuances in kink go deep. And this is just a little taste. But if you want a big taste, you want a big 4-day meal, come to the free online DS Summit. Got all the info there. I'm teaching discovering your hard and soft limits, and it's gonna be a blast. So I'll see you there, unless it's your hard limit.